President Amy Crew. Amy,
Thank you so much. Thank you, President Ray. Let me make sure I'm not I'm mute here. So I am not. This is good.
We're good.
So this morning when I was trying to kind of finalize what I wanted to say today, I was talking to a colleague whose son is a fourth grader. And last night he lost a tooth at school and he didn't tell his mom and dad. He put the tooth under his pillow and see if the tooth fairy would come. And his mom and dad, not knowing that he'd lost the tooth, of course, the tooth fairy did not make an appearance. And so he figured out that, oh, the tooth fairy isn't real. And that probably means that Santa isn't real as well. So that's a kind of tough morning for him and for his mom. And when talking to his mom, about, well, how did you handle it? And she said, years ago, long before I had kids, I found a letter that someone had written to their son. And she said, I kept it because I knew this day would come. So I wanted to share this letter because I thought it had a lot of good advice. It says, dear son, you asked a really good question. Are mom and dad really Santa? We know that you want to know the answer, and we had to give it careful thought to know what to say. The answer is no, we are not Santa. There is no one single Santa. We are the people who fill your stockings and choose to wrap the presents under the tree, just as our parents did for us, their parents did for them, and you will someday do for your children. This could never make any of us Santa, though Santa is lots and lots of people who keep the spirit of Christmas alive. He lives in our hearts, not at the North Pole. Santa is the magic and the love and the spirit of giving to others. What he does is teach children to believe in something they cannot see or touch. Throughout your life, you will need this capacity to believe in yourself, in your family, in your friends, and in God. You will need to be able to believe in things you cannot measure or hold in your hand. Now you know the secret of how he gets down all those chimneys on Christmas Eve. He has the help from all the people whose hearts he has filled with joy. With full hearts, people like mommy and daddy take our turns helping Santa do a job that would otherwise be impossible. So no, we are not Santa. Santa is love and magic and hope and happiness. We are on his team, and now you are too. So be on Santa's team is my message today.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
That was good.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Wonderful. Okay. Health and welfare. Are there any updates or reports on the health of Rotary members? I know we got a message from Amy Vanderbutt about Dane Davis, who recently passed. I don't know if there's any further information. Amy, are you there? She might be muted.
I am here.
Okay.
Dane actually, his daughter contacted me, and he actually did pass from COVID.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's all the information I have at this time. I know the family, it doesn't seem like they're planning to have any kind of funeral. They're planning to honor him privately.
Okay.
a wonderful, wonderful Rotarian.
He sure was. Wonderful person.
Thank you for that. Are there any others?
I've got one. Ghassan Saab's mother passed away.
Oh,
Oh,
that's too bad.
Is she here or in Lebanon?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know they were offering condolences to Manal this morning at a meeting that I was on.
Okay.
Okay. Let's deal with that. I think that's all. Are there any guests? Well, we have guests today.
I have two guests, President Ray. Mary Jo Herbig is our Associate Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. So Mary Jo is with us. And also Shakara Wheeler. Shakara is the Executive Assistant for Educare Flint and the Flint Early Childhood Collaborative. So both of those are my guests. And I know that I saw a couple other folks that are guests, but
Yeah,
I can't take credit for them.
President Ray, thank you. We're joined by Brian Larkin, who wears two hats in this meeting. He's the director of the National Land Bank for the Center for Community Progress, and he's also the son of our guest speaker today.
Right. Heck, we met with Brian during the breakout, and he made it a point to tell us that he beat you here.
Yeah, I had a meeting with an elected official that ran long, so that was and they sit on the energy committee, so I wasn't going to jump off early.
Are there any other guests?
Yes, President Ray, I've brought a contingent from Ruth Mott today. I'm joined by Raquel Robinson, who is our Vice President of Programs, as well as Ann Loshaw, who is the Director of Collections and Education at Applewood Estate. We've also got Trifina Clark, who is the Community Engagement Officer at Ruth Mott, and also Renee Saba, who spearheads our education programs. So we've got a full crew here today.
Oh, fantastic.
Congratulations.
Well, I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for coming. And I want you to enjoy today's program to see exactly what we do and how we do it. And that will motivate you to come back. Are there any other announcements? Okay. So now it's time for the program. And again, former President Amy Krug will give you an introduction, and the floor is yours, Amy.
Thank you, President Ray. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon. She and I are currently colleagues. Lynn Williams is the Community Engagement Officer of the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. But I have known Lynn for many more years than us just being colleagues. So Lynn is a lifelong resident of Flint, and she has worked with the Community Foundation of Greater Flint since 2000. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Sociology and Social Work from the University of Michigan Flint. Go Blue. Lynn has served her community professionally in various human and social service organizations focused on improving the quality of life for children and families within the Flint community. Over the past 20 years as an employee of the Community Foundation of Greater Flint, a significant portion of her work has been focused on grant making and community leadership activities with resident-led, grassroots, and neighborhood-based organizations. In addition to the Neighborhood Small Grant Program, she currently leads the Foundation's Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation efforts. Lynn has a passion for work that involves the collaborative efforts focused on increasing the vitality of Flint and Genesee County. She's an amazing partner and convener, and I'm proud to call her a colleague and a friend. So I'd like to turn it over to Lynn at this time.
Thank you, Amy. That was such a generous introduction. But I do appreciate knowing and having had the opportunity to work with you for all of these years.
Many years.
Yeah, a lot of years. And thank you, Rotary, for allowing me the opportunity to share for a little bit about some of the work that I'm leading at the current time. Again, I'm Lynn Williams, and I am the Community Engagement Officer at the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. I want to talk to you today about an initiative called Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. So if you will allow me a second, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully I do it right. Can you see that? Everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, now I've got to shift into presentation mode. That might take me a second because some of these task bars are in my way. Okay, let's see. All right.
Perfect.
Again, there I am. Just a reminder. So I'm talking today about, we call it TRHT for short. The name is Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. The Community Foundation is one of 14 sites that received funding from the Kellogg Foundation in, I believe it was 2016, the end of 2016, early 2017, to engage in an initiative in their community that's designed to help communities work together to create plans to address the issues of racism and the need for racial healing in order to transform some of the systems that perpetuate racism in our community. So again, we're one of 14 sites in Michigan. Michigan is unique because while we're considered one site, we have 4 different places in Michigan that have a TRHT program. So it's Flint, Battle Creek, Lansing, and Kalamazoo. And we do individual work in our communities, but we also work together as a statewide collaborative. And it is something that I'm really glad to have the opportunity to work closely with colleagues. So, what is TRHT? It's a comprehensive national and community based process, the goal of which I kind of mentioned earlier, but it's really to help community bring about transformation and sustainable change. It's to address the historic effects of racism, to identify the truths around racism in community life, to acknowledge those truths, and then to work together to build ways to unearth and jettison the deeply held and often unconscious beliefs that undergird racism. The main one of those beliefs is a belief in a hierarchy of human value. The creator of TRHT, Dr. Gail Christopher, who was a former staff person at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and also a holistic doctor. She was very strategic in picking out these words to unearth and jettison the deeply held and unconscious beliefs. If any of you are Star Trek fans, you recognize that word jettison. She really picked that word to uh, to under to underline the issue of removing racism with a force. Basically smashing it into obliviation, not just saying we're going to turn from racism or we're going to eventually. She really wanted to emphasize that this is something to address fervently and forcefully. So, what is racial healing? Racial healing really has to do with recognizing past and current trauma and harm that racism has caused, both individually and collectively. It's each person being committed to their own individual healing journey as well as working together as a community. It's entering a process that requires listening, acknowledging mistakes, building accountability, not finger pointing, not blaming. Uh, Different people and different communities must drive for themselves what healing looks like. Healing it's unique from diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. It's related, but it is a little different. It is needed though. The racial healing circle, which is one of the tools that we utilize in TRHT in our community, the racial healing circle really creates the space for people to begin sharing truths, listening deeply, and building relationships. The relationship building is the undergirding of TRHT. the idea is that people who have built relationships by sharing and identifying their common humanity, the threads of common humanity, can build relationships where they learn to trust, where they are then able to have more open conversations, where they are then able to form trusting relationships where they can support each other as they get into the more difficult work down the line of confronting and transforming racism. TRHT is not really a program. It's a framework, and there are components to the framework that are as follows. Overarching the whole initiative are the concepts of narrative change and racial healing and relationship building. Those are thread throughout the whole framework. Narrative change can happen in a number of ways, but narrative change that brings about transformational change often is seen in work focused on the entertainment industry, journalism and news media, digital media, publishing, school curricula. For instance, in Kalamazoo, their TRHT has a group of people that have been working with the school district to try to change some of the curricula, some of the information with regard to slavery and Reconstruction and the impacts. Um, Cultural institutions and monuments and parks, narrative change in a lot of those areas. And if you look at the national news and you look at what's going on around the country, you actually see probably the importance of doing things in our communities that bring about the true narratives, the assets of the people, the abilities, as well as the challenges and the obstacles of the systems in our communities. So that's why narrative change is such an important piece. Then racial healing and relationship building. One of the tools that we utilize to address racial healing and relationship building is the racial healing circle. I'll talk about that a little bit more detail shortly. But also community dialogues, things that really are encouraging and supporting exchange and again this sharing amongst people in a way where people can be authentic, where they can be open and supportive. So narrative change and racial healing, again, overarching principles, and then they are to help support and infuse the work that happens in these three pillars at the bottom that you see. Separation. The pillar of separation talks about anything systemic that is related to how and why we live separate lives, segregation, colonization, and concentrated poverty in our community. So, programs that are looking at these issues like decolonization, that are looking at housing, health, arts and culture, immigration and migration, education and development. Those are some of the main ones, but it is probably not an exhaustive list. But things looking to transform the systems that keep us separate and segregated. The another pillar is the pillar of law. TRHT, through its tools, also hopes to support and undergird efforts that are looking at transforming the system of law, civil, criminal, and public policies. So that can be things, projects that are going on in the area of law enforcement, safety, criminal justice, juvenile justice, civil justice, mass incarceration, immigration, migration again, education and development. Locally, the Flint program is currently working with the city of Flint and the police department, where we are hosting racial healing conversations with the police department to help them, one, to strengthen their internal relationships with each other and build trust, as well as to help to identify and unearth some of the issues that they feel are perpetuating, that perpetuate or not, because not everybody shares the same feeling about it, but racism within our public safety. Then the last pillar of importance for TRHT is the pillar of economy. Economy talks about the structured inequality and barriers to employment and can be addressing programs, projects, initiatives in the areas of employment, labor, workforce, wealth, immigration and migration again, education and development, things that impact access to wealth. Uh, so that's the framework. And with TRHT, what we do is the theory of change, so to speak, of how TRHT works. A combination of truth efforts, and those can be presentations, they could be conversations where the truth of the experiences of racism of a people in a community, combined with racial healing activities, focused on a group, a coalition of folks that are working in an area to transform systems, is really how TRHT plays out. And again, being a framework and not a program, things happen differently in every community. It is the priorities and the activities are determined based on feedback from the community and desires from the community. So in this community, in Flint and Genesee County, the way we're currently processing TRHT is there are many existing efforts. Many of them are coalitions, and some of them are just partnerships, loose partnerships of people that are working on projects as they learn about the framework and the tools available to support their projects. We make contact and work out with them how they would like to utilize um, racial healing circles, community dialogues, visioning conversations. And in many cases, we also have grant making dollars that support some of the existing work that's working in the area. So that's how it is working right now here. But we started out and so I think it's important to talk about how we started out. We started out with an organizing structure called a design team that had representatives from various sectors, systems leaders, as well as neighborhood folks and as community activists, a cross section of people that had a healing circle and they did a visioning session. And they created some thoughts about the needs in our community. Um, at that point, in many communities, they go straight to racial healing work. In that point in our community, as we began to share information about what the design team, underwent and their ideas, our community said, well, that's nice, but I wasn't involved in that, or, I don't feel like my voice was represented. So what we decided to do in Flint was to back up and to engage more people in conversations. So we had a series of community visioning sessions and conversations where we had 24 community organizations host a session. The community organizations partnered with another community organization. So there were 12 conversations throughout the community. And there was a real positive response from community about just being engaged in conversation and a desire for continued conversation. So from that point, what we did in our program is the design team said, we're gonna ask you to put a lot of emphasis on creating the capacity to do racial healing circles and conversations, and then maybe focus on some low hanging fruit, like supporting with small grants some of the projects and community that exist that that can be supported by the model. So that's what we did. We trained about 10 community members, and then to conduct racial healing circles. And we have been conducting racial healing circles, having visioning sessions, and helping groups do action planning around this in community now since late 2019. What is a racial healing circle? It has transformed, I will say, immensely due to COVID, because we're not able to do these in person right now. In person, you would see groups sitting like in this picture in a circle, groups of people that would be having conversations across the big circle, and then breakouts in dyads or small groups coming back to the big circle to share themes and to hear common threads of humanity that just help people to understand others' experiences, as well as to see their own stories in the stories of others, and to create this uh, create a way to address and work to powers to get to needed policy changes through the lens of empathy and love, through the heart space. Before jumping in to do the hard head work, this is really getting the heart engaged. After the community, the racial healing circles, in many cases, will have a visioning session with the group. And after they've spent the morning in the heart space, had a break, come to the afternoon, it's let's begin to think about what the head work looks like. And these are some of the questions that are sometimes used in the visioning. Again, the questions really are tailored to the groups we're working with, the goals of the groups we're working with. Many times the organizers have a certain thing they want to get to. But here are the basic TRHT questions. What does the Flint community look like once we have jettisoned this belief in a hierarchy of human value? Where are we now and how do we get here? What are key leverage points for change? Who else needs to be involved to create healing and transformation? And what are the initial action steps that we must take? So this is in a nutshell, TRHT, the way we're approaching it in Flint. And if anyone has any questions, I am ready to answer or try to answer.
Questions? That's awfully
Lynn,
good.
I have a question. Sorry, I actually have never asked this to you. I know it took a lot of work for us to get the healing circles with the Flint Police Department, and mostly a lot of that was just logistics, not due to lack of interest.
Right.
But what do you think the most surprising thing to come out of that was, or the thing that you were happiest about? So, or have there been any themes that you've seen there?
There have been themes, and we have more. We have not quite completed all the circles. We still have a few more to schedule, but there are some consistent themes that were at first, I think, somewhat surprising. One of the themes is that the officers themselves, for the most part, are very committed to Flint and feel that they are in need of more resources. They can't do as everything that they want to do because of staffing issues. And so that comes up a lot, needing more resources, needing to be able to hire more officers so that they can better respond. They're enormously interested in being able to be responsive to community, and frustrated often that they're not able to get to places and things in the time that the community would want. And there's another common theme is wanting to get back to community policing, wanting to have the ability to be in neighborhoods and develop relationships with people in neighborhoods and work with the youth in the neighborhoods, have programs and conversations. So those are some of the, surprising but um, um, positive things that are coming out of the conversation. There's some challenges as well, and not everybody feels the same way as to whether or not racism even exists in that system or even in community. But I think they have been able to really talk and listen to each other in a way I think that they hadn't ever been able to do before. So we're excited about the possibilities that can come forth once we get through this process.
Lynn,
Question.
Lynn, how long have we been, this program been in existence?
So the program has been in existence since late 2017. Much of that was in the formative process. So we have gotten more proactive in doing the work in community, I want to say, since late 2019. And we're really kind of ramping up our work now. We got a pause due to COVID, so that set us back for a while and put things on hold. But working with our partners throughout the state and throughout the country, we've identified ways to pick up the work and carry it on virtually for now until we can get back together. But it is really picking up.
All right, and it's a program that's going to continue. Is that correct?
Yes, we're continuing the work. We have major outside funding from Kellogg for another year, but one of the other conditions of us getting the grant was that we build an endowment fund, matching funds endowment fund, to support this type of work into the future. So our staff, and Mary Jo is on the call, and Amy, they are working diligently to help us with the matching endowment so that we can continue the work even if the grant dollars disappear, or continue also to support efforts in community that exist already doing the work.
Lynn,
yeah, this is Lynn. This is Lynn. When we mentioned community and you talk primarily in Flint, does this program include all the other small communities in our county?
So the original grant was really focused on Flint. However, there are ways in which we touch other parts of the community by engaging programs that have staff or have participants from other parts of the community. So it's sort of indirect right now at this point. We hope to be able to expand to more directly, strategically deal with the whole county, but our initial funding is focused on Flint, particularly in light of a lot of the dynamics that were happening as a result of the water crisis and the lack of trust and the attention from all over the world. They thought the focus originally should be on Flint and what we can do to help build trust.
Thank you.
I have a question for Lynn.
Yes.
Hi, Lynn. This is Anne Marie. How are you?
Marie, good.
So there was a community group interested in doing a TRHT process of some kind. What does it look like to get that started?
Basically, they would just simply need to contact the foundation, and they can contact me directly. I'll put my email in the chat, and then I will get initial information and then take that back to our racial healing professional team, and then we begin to work with them to help them flesh out, based on their own goals, what a process would look like. Is it racial healing circles? Is it community conversations or visioning? Or it might be a conversation around grant making. So it really, differs depending on the needs, and they can start with contacting me at the Community Foundation.
Thank you.
Marie, did you have a question?
My question was exactly what Lynn Harand asked about the out counties, the other suburban communities. So it's already been answered. It's exactly what Lynn Harand asked. Thank you.
All right.
Well, Ray, I have another question for Lynn then. Sometimes I feel that we're preaching to the choir. Do you feel that we are reaching the people that we want to and need to reach?
So that is a very good question. It's one that's difficult to answer. I would say there are layers to this, and it depends on how we define who needs to be reached. So we start with the willing, we start with those that reach out and start and say, can we, can we engage? And we have noticed a lot of traction, a lot of community, a lot of our community are willing and interested to have these conversations and to work across systems to create initiatives for change. It works best when you've got groups, when you've got people that are moving in this direction or that have decided to move in this direction, to create initiatives. And I think as more things are created, as more attention is focused on narrative change efforts, that the hope is that that will then help to engage other people who haven't necessarily volunteered or stepped up to be a part. Community conversations is kind of like the key, and our community conversations and racial healing circles really are, again, they're kind of like a set the table. It's like a pre step. It's not jumping right in to do the work of dismantling racism, but it is the getting the hearts and minds ready. So we're
Okay.
And Lynn, I know Lynn, you always have so many great resources that, you're able to provide to our team. Is there anything that you would recommend to our group if we wanted to learn more about how to, kind of address the internal racism that we all have, and what, how to better kind of consider the other as you're kind of widening your worldview? And is there something you'd read, or a person or an author, or
that's such a good question. I mean, there are so many works out right now, so many books. We're trying to get our arms around locally what programs exist or what programs are coming online. So that's something we haven't, that toolkit isn't developed yet. One of the people to Google, though, again, the founder of TRHT, Dr. Gail Christopher, she has a lot of written work, and she has several YouTube videos, TED Talks and YouTube videos that are very engaging about this point. And there are really a ton of national artists, and we have local champions in our community. We have to find them. Community-based outreach partnership has many of our champions connected to that entity. We've got the YWCA that is looking to rebuild initiatives that they had in the past around this. And again, there are a plethora of resources. One other thing that comes to mind right now, on the WK Kellogg website, should anyone ever go to that website, there is a toolkit. You can build your own toolkit, and it has articles, videos, and you can just pull from these and create your own little folder. I believe it is on there, the section of the website that is focused on TRHT or Healing America.
President Ray, this is Dale Wayhill. Can I offer just a comment for my friend Lynn?
Go right ahead.
Lynn, how are you? It's good to see you.
Thank you, Dale. Good to see you too.
I want to thank you for your work and the Community Foundation's commitment to this issue. Amy as well, and of course Isaiah and the other folks there. I think sometimes I think we think of racial healing and racism as national issues, and certainly they are. or maybe legacies from the South or, slavery in the South. And of course they are. But if you look at the history of Flint and other urban areas like Detroit, northern cities, there was segregation here based on some law and custom. There was segregation in employment, housing, education. If you look at, someone asked about a book, but if you take a look at Demolition Means Progress, which isn't quite it's not a psychological thing, it's really just a history book. And there's a lot in there that I didn't know about Flint proper and the way that we treated African Americans for decades in this. And I think there's a legacy from that. And I think this initiative is one way of sort of untangling that legacy and looking at it critically and trying to do better as we go forward by learning from that. And in many ways, we are the community we are because of the systems and processes and biases that we lived with for decades and still live with to a degree. So long story short, I appreciate your work. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I recommend, if you can grab Andrew Highsmith's book, anybody, if you're interested in Flint history and this issue, Demolition Means Progress is a good place to start.
You're right. That is an excellent place to start. And thank you so much, Dale.
You, Dale. Then I had one other thought, and that is, this is a great big project that is ongoing. And as you focus on a city like Flint, especially really not being able to expand until you can make serious progress, how do you monitor the progress? Let's think about step by step. And you want to make sure that you don't have to go back and do things over and over and over again. How do you really monitor your progress in that regard?
Well, that's a very good question. And I want to just point out that this work, this TRHT work, is only a piece of a ton of work that we need and that is happening in community, or that can happen in community. So part of what we do, or will be doing more, particularly with the racial healing circles, we will be looking at where we've had visioning conversations and groups have identified goals. We'll be getting that information back to them to make sure that they know what they've identified in their conversations and what are priorities. And then we'll need to touch base with organizations from time to time to see how and where they have moved on their goals and what help they might need. Those are my initial thoughts about our monitoring, as well as just making sure that we're collecting the information about priorities and concerns, and we're sharing that where we need to and with whom we need to try to catalyze movement. So yeah, it's a big goal, and measuring and monitoring. There will be stories, collections of stories, all kinds of things like that. So it's going to be multi-layered.
Sounds great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you have any reports that have to be put to the Kellogg Foundation or regarding
Yes.
this grant that
Yes.
measure what's been happening or accomplished? And I don't know. It's a
Yes.
big task.
We do. We have annual reports that where we're reporting out, like things like the numbers, what are the activities, who do we engage, and then we have evaluators. So there's really like 3 levels of evaluation going on with this project as a whole. So there are national evaluators that we meet with and share with. There are statewide evaluators, and then we have a local evaluator. So there's a lot of levels of collecting information about really what Kellogg is really most intent on learning about is, do the relationships between people change based on the healing activities, And does that change allow these groups to stick together and ultimately be more effective in the long run? They're not looking within a period of 5 years to see that we have totally transformed some system or some policies. Their bigger concern is on the impact of healing on relationships, relationship building, on getting us as a community to transformation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, that's awesome. Can we get the next slide then? Okay. Okay, skip to Ms. Williams. Lynn, I think that was an excellent presentation, and your progress is exceptional. So I'm just encouraging you to keep it up and somehow keep in touch and keep us updated, because I think it is critical to not only to our thinking, but to the program and also the community as a whole. And I thank you.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to visit. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, I'm glad you did. And in appreciation for the time and preparation that you donated for our enjoyment and education, the Rotary Club of Flint will make a donation in your name to the Rotary International Foundation for the Eradication of Polio. And thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome, and thank you.
I want to thank former President Amy Krug for her inspirational message, speaker introduction, and the duties that she's participated in organized this month for this month's programs. And also for raising those two little gorgeous young ladies.
Thanks, Ray. That's my full-time job.
And I want to thank our note taker, Elizabeth Cummings. Flint Rotary thanks each and every one of you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our program as much as we enjoyed welcoming you as members and as guests. Please join us next week as we present the Director of Michigan Dyslexia Institute, Ms. Catherine Gonzer, for a report on the Dyslexia Institute and Rotary Literacy Project. Stay safe, keep warm, and look to open opportunities in order to provide service above self. We are adjourned. All right. We got an actual sound with the bell.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Good weekend. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Sunny weekend. All right. I wrote Reverend Jim. Well, you're gone.
Yes, sir.
George,
Hello there. James, glad to see you.
you're gonna be on that call tomorrow morning?
Yes. See you.
Okay,
Yep. I'll see you then.
all right.
Mr. Jim, how are you doing?
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good man.
How about you?
Stay healthy. Glad to see you.
Stay healthy.
Yes.
You tell me that. should have told me that 25 years ago.
Well, I did, but you weren't listening then.
I haven't known you for 25 years.
You have known me for 25 years.
Huh?
Yes, you've known me for 25 years.
You think
Let's go
so?
back, way back to Chuck Holmes days.
Huh?
Way back to Chuck Holmes and the board. The
whatchamacallit board.
Anyway, the whatever it was called.
You know what Ray said?
What do you say?
He said, whatchamacallit group.
Whatchamacallit group. Thank you. That always works best for me at this point in my life. But we go back a long way to that board, which was the Genesee County. Geez, well, it had something to do with Genesee County and drugs. And it was the main board in the community.
Yeah, substance abuse.
Thank you. I knew we'd get, but
yeah,
Genesee County Substance Abuse Coordinating Agency. Yes,
and
that's where we met.
Met in the county building. Yep.
Yep, that's where we met. and we whipped your fanny and ping pong at Christmas. So just remember that. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Enjoy the
Bye.
summertime while it's here.
Bye. Bye. Hello, Mary.